What is the impact of gender stereotypes and sexual violence for women's learning in India? It is first important to define what is meant by sexual violence and by gender stereotyping. According to the No Bullying website, gender stereotyping is described as an overgeneralization of characteristics, differences, and attributes of each gender. Gender stereotyping can be dangerous and result in the violation of rights. When looking for the definition for sexual violence, it is clear that there are many opinions expressed as to what constitutes violence. However, the clearest definition found for this video was from WHO. They define sexual violence as any unwanted sexual act or an attempt to do said act. This includes comments, advances, trafficking, and coercion. The NSPCC defines this further by splitting sexual violence into two categories: contact and non-contact, with non-contact forms including online grooming, child pornography, exploitation, and flashing. 35% of women worldwide have experienced intimate partner violence or sexual violence by non-partner in 2013. Intimate partner violence is defined as rape, physical assault, and stalking by a previous or current romantic partner, with Indian women being 50 times more likely to experience this than men. 40% of men and 45% of women in India believe that this form of behaviour from their husbands is perfectly acceptable, including the ability to beat them if they were to go against her husband's wishes or to shame him in any way, with only 23% of women who experience this seeking help. This sexual violence is not limited to women of age. Children also experience this, as in 2014, UNICEF found that Indian child brides account for a third of the global total. A child bride being one of the 12 million girls married under the age of 18, effectively stopping their education at the point of marriage. In India, women are viewed as less than men, with cows being seen as more valuable than women, even though women make up 50% of the agricultural workforce and are doing more hazardous work than their male counterparts. In India, the literacy rate of women is much lower than men, with in some parts it being as low as 3%. This could be because some parents fear what education would do to their daughter or that it would dampen their worth. However, according to the census report in 2008, the literacy rate of women has improved over time, with it being as low as 8.9% in 1951 to improving to a 57% literacy rate for women in 2004. Although it is a clear improvement over time, India is still not matching up to their Western counterparts, with 83% of girls in England achieving a level 4 or above in their Key Stage 2 exams in 2002. A reason why there could be a big difference in these literacy rates is that when looking at primary schools in India and in the UK, there is a clear difference in the facilities that are available, with 89% of schools in India in 2004 having no toilets and 59% of schools having no drinking water available. This lack of facilities proves problematic for girls, as there is no place for them to relieve themselves that isn't out in the open. This also includes a lack of facilities for girls to use when they are menstruating. This can prove not only a physical barrier to girls, but can be a psychological one as well. For those girls who do risk answering nature's call out in the open, they not only have the risk of having health issues due to the unsanitary situation, they also have an increased risk of sexual violence and rape, as anybody nearby can see and take advantage of them. This increased risk of violence and the potential embarrassment of the lack of facilities can mean that some girls are discouraged from attending school or from pursuing further education, and instead end up holding back and fulfilling their gender stereotype. Those who aren't discouraged and continue on to further education suffer from gender profiling and stereotyping, leading to these women being more inclined to participate in programs and courses which reflect their duties in the household, meaning less women go into courses such as science and technology. Nair stated that women who pursue further education are more likely to go into courses such as the arts or education. However, although education courses are female-dominated, Belkoff states that there are few female teachers. This is a direct contradiction into what women study and then what they pursue as careers. It is these gender stereotypes that women are subjected to that mean they are more vulnerable to sexual violence and rape. This exposure to sexual violence leads to a negative impact on their social and educational outcomes. Although India has an increased risk of this, it is not limited to one country. When looking at the effects of education on intimate partner violence, it is made clear that when both genders are more educated, they are less likely to conform to the stereotypes and less likely to participate in sexual violence. With women without a full education, being over 5 times more likely to experience sexual violence in their lives. On the other hand, if a girl experiences sexual violence before she graduates, she is then more likely to fail or drop out of education altogether. Although the study that states this is American, it can be transferable to India, as it is about the mentality of the victim and not the culture in which the violence is experienced. This study's results has been seen across multiple countries. Once a female student has experienced sexual violence, their grades are more likely to drop because of the psychological side effects, with one American female describing the impact as it was like her transcript was covered in his semen. This creates a fear to attend school, with girls not only experiencing the fear of failure, they may also experience the fear of bumping into their assailant. This fear can also lead to a lack of confidence in their abilities and in the safety of their environment. Another psychological impact of sexual violence is the ability to problem solve and choose a career. This is because of the fear and lack of confidence combined to make victims struggle to feel safe and to feel able to continue in their day-to-day lives. This may increase with women in India as they may be rejected based upon them losing their virtue. Statistics for sexual violence are high in India. Parents are often skeptical sending their daughters to school when they have a male teacher, they are learning alongside boys, or if the school is far away, as they believe that it increases the chance of their daughters falling prey to sexual violence and diminishing their worth. This gender stereotyping can also lead to rape culture, which is defined by Butchwold as a complex set of beliefs that encourage male sexual aggression and violence against women. It is a society in which violence is seen as sexy and sexuality seen as violent. In rape culture, both men and women assume that rape is inevitable. It is clear that in India, rape culture is prevalent, as can be seen by the many cases of rape and sexual assault that have happened in this year alone, with many cases having few convictions and many victims feeling persecuted for speaking out. Here are some examples of this. In 1996, a 16-year-old girl from a village in Kerala was abducted and repeatedly gang-raped by 5 people over the span of 40 days. She was found afterwards near her father's office in an awful state. In 2012, she still reports that herself and her family are treated as outcasts due to what happened. This is still happening in 2018, with an 8-year-old girl being kidnapped, tortured and raped over several days, with 8 people being involved, 4 of which were police officers. Although all of them have been arrested, their trial is still ongoing and could take longer due to the backlog of cases in India. The effect of the backlog of cases can be seen by the case of another 16-year-old girl who was raped in 2013 by a guru, who has only just been convicted this year. Although he has been sentenced to life imprisonment, it is clear that this length of time for sentencing can discourage women and girls from coming forward. Women and girls who do come forward not only face the difficulty of the long backlog of cases, they also face the risk of being confronted with all male police officers, with a girl from one case saying that the way they spoke to her sister and asked her vulgar questions made her feel like she was being raped all over again. Guttentag and Secord suggested in 1983 that one of the reasons that there are high levels of sexual violence is the fact that there are too many women, and that with fewer women in India, it would raise their worth to men. However, this theory is not supported by the Indian government. The government of India in 2011 said that there would be less sexual violence if there were more women. In 2011, there were 940 females to every 1,000 males in India, with some researchers suggesting that because of the higher sex ratio in India, it may lead to sexual jealousy among men and lead to more sexual violence. Currently, in Indian culture, talking about sex is taboo. However, out of 2,180 women, 64 had an STI, and was highest amongst those with a lower socioeconomic background and those who are married and exposed to sexual violence. This study shows the need for a sex education to promote safe sex across the population. It is clear that India needs to implement basic sex education for everyone to prevent STIs. However, the basic sex education that is received in Canada, according to Horseman, is not in enough depth, with women saying that they felt that sexual violence education was needed so they understood it and knew where to get help. In order to conclude, it is important to analyse the ways in which the situation in India can be improved. It is the state that needs to help prevent gender stereotyping by supporting women and their families in their education. It is through money and guidance that it will correct the gender imbalance that is prominent in India. It is society's role to eradicate the gender stereotypes from birth. because it is important for girls and women to be educated and treated as equals, to give them the same opportunities and chances that mean they can make more of a difference in the upper levels of society by having more police officers and lawyers. These awful acts of sexual violence and gender stereotyping that are being experienced by girls and women throughout India needs to stop. The impact that this is having on not only women but the country as a whole is stopping them from progressing as a nation. Will you stand with them?